I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Mounir Benchemled, founder of Paraswap, here to talk about decentralized finance, cross-chain, the growth of DeFi and DAOs as well, and the interesting updates that's coming for DeFi and Paraswap in the near future. Mounir, thank you for taking the time.
Hey, Ashton, thanks for having me.
Very welcome. Excited to dive into your insights into DeFi. You're deep in it. I would love to start off with a little bit on what you and your team have built at Paraswap, how it relates to DeFi and adds value, and then we can dive into all those latest topics.
Yeah, sure. So Paraswap journey started in 2019. It's been almost 6 years. So started in late 2019, so 5 years and few months. It's been a while. So what we built, we're known for as being a DEX aggregator since that time. So basically, it's a tool or a middleware that allows their users, whether those are end users or other dApps and wallets, to access the DeFi DEX markets. And we provide the best possible prices by running some fancy algorithms that will grab data in real time and crunch it in all the senses and try to provide the best possible price. So that's the value add to the end user. I would use Paraswap because it can provide me the best possible rates on the markets. And so far, we have surpassed $100 billion in volume. Most of it was done since late 2021.
Wow, that's incredible. And of course, if you're trading in decentralized exchanges, there's so many different options. And how do you know how to get the best rate? So like finding an aggregator that can search the different platforms and make that trade for you without having to do hours of research is obviously incredibly valuable. So I can see why you guys have passed 100 billion in volume. That's incredible. Is there a specific region where a lot of this volume is being attributed to in the different blockchains and different aggregators?
Well, it's been global so far. I always like to say the region we're targeting is the DeFi native users, which got much bigger. It used to be maybe a few hundred, a few thousand of people when we started, and now we're talking about tens of maybe hundreds of thousands of users. So there's no specific region that we're targeting per se. There are some ideas that we get here and there, like we should maybe focus on the Asian markets, on that markets to address their users with their local language. That may be something that we may do at some points. But yeah, we are global and we try to add value to whoever needs to use us, as I said, whether it can be end user or wallets or dApps and protocols.
Definitely, as it should be with decentralized exchanges, going global and lowering the barriers to entry for anybody to
Yeah.
swap or trade digital assets. So, congrats again on that volume. And I was reading through the details on Paraswap when I was trying it out, and it was talking about intent-based DeFi. And I haven't heard of that before. I just know DeFi, decentralized finance. What is this intent-based, and how does that add value?
Well, intent is like the literal language. You instead of giving a protocol instructions on how it should behave on chain, what you're providing is only your intent. Like, I want to swap token A for B and give me the best possible price and execute at
Mm,
the best possible conditions. That's all I
mm,
need to know as a user. I don't care if it's going to use Uniswap,
mm,
Balancer, Curve, you name it. I just want it to provide me the best possible price. And
mm,
that's in a very nutshell intent where you provide the outputs. I
mhm,
want to sell my ETH at $2,000 when it reaches
mhm.
back $2,000. And that's all I need to know. I don't care how it's going to happen. I just set a condition like if the transaction doesn't return $2,000, it's going to fail. And that's a
Mm,
guarantee I have using
mm,
smart contracts. And that's all. But with aggregators, you have a request and then you get a response. The aggregator tells you, I'm going to split this trade across this, and that DEX. I'm going to use that token as an
mm,
intermediary. A lot of things that normally users don't care about. And
mhm.
that's, I think, the evolution of aggregators is using intents.
Yeah, no, I like that approach. It sort of reminds me of having that Amazon experience. If you want it to onboard millions of people, and then the blockchain needs to sort of be in the background of, what's the technology. I just want to sell this for this price, and I don't want to have to go through 5 screens of choosing the DEX, choosing the slippage versus the costs and all of this. Just give me the best rate, and the technology in the background will do all the work. I feel like that's what we need for adoption, to go to new people that they don't want to look at all this stuff. They just want to sell and get the next asset that they're looking for.
100%. Totally agree.
So with the Paraswap, you mentioned that there's different aggregators, and that also goes to different blockchains. And of course, there's Ethereum ecosystem, which is sort of where DEX started. And then there's all the EVM chains, but then there's other blockchains as well. What are the limits in which assets and which blockchains you can swap between?
Yeah, so we focused only on EVM chains for now. The simple reason, well, the first one, because of historical reasons, as EVM chains were the only ones that had traction over time, which changed with Solana. And we see also other chains like Aptos, Sui, getting some momentum. The limitation is it's a very different stack on a technical point of view. For instance, if we are in Ethereum, we deploy in Ethereum and want to scale to Base, it's just a copy paste or a redeployment of exactly the same contract with some very minor changes like how we calculate gas and all of those things. But it is, you can say, pretty much the same thing. But scaling to Solana, it's literally rebuilding from scratch the whole smart contract system. And this goes as well for any non-EVM chain. There are some chains who kind of are closer to Ethereum. And there are also some chains who are more or less close to each other, like the move-based chains, like Aptos, Sui, and all of that. So maybe if you build for Sui, you may easily more or less be able to scale to Aptos, and maybe with a lesser effort between Solana and move chains, because they're using language based on Rust. But for Ethereum, it's another story.
Definitely. And have you seen any trends with all the EVM chains and the layer 2s? They each have slightly different transaction costs, normally better than Ethereum. But with the amount of 100 billion volume, do you still see predominantly on Ethereum, or has there really been a transition of people trading a lot on the layer 2s to save those extra transaction costs and make it faster?
Well, since the last few weeks, maybe 2-3 months, between the gas cost between Ethereum and some L2s is a bit tiny, because now you can still make Ethereum mainnet transactions at, I don't know, like 10 cents, 20 cents, 50, which used to cost at some point. I remember some traders were paying like $1,000, $2,000 just for one transaction. But there are 2 categories of traders. You have the whales who are trading multi-million dollars worth of assets, and you have the retail users who are doing anything between $10 and $1,000. And these guys are gas sensitive because it can represent a big percentage of the amount they are trading. So we see more and more retail moving to Base nowadays. And the whales are still using Ethereum. Thing is, in Ethereum, we still have the deepest liquidity. If you're trading, I don't know, 20 million worth of ETH, chances are you would prefer using Ethereum than using an L2.
Definitely. That's a great point. What do you think about the fragmented liquidity in decentralized finance on different chains? Is there some evolution that will happen throughout blockchain that can help aggregate liquidity, lower the slippage, and lower the cost for everybody?
Yeah, I think, well, that's also the Project Miró of Paraswap is the evolution to cross-chain. And there are a lot of there has been a lot of attempts since, I don't know, 2018, I think, on building cross-chain solutions, starting with bridges that are most of the time not really secure, obviously with some exceptions. So the biggest hacks we had so far were in bridges. And now the evolution is to use intent-based cross-chain swaps. The most known, I think, these days who are using intent is Across. But Paraswap also is making this step forward on allowing users to swap tokens from one chain to the other. And the goal, the end goal or the end game is to completely abstract the chain. Because as you were saying, the Amazon experience, where you don't care maybe now about which text is being used, but why should you care which chain are you in? Maybe you have USDC. Does it really matter for the end user which chain is this USDT sitting? Especially that now we have like, I don't know, like 100 chains, and maybe in the future we're talking about maybe thousands of chains. This is not going to scale in terms of user adoption. So I think abstracting the chain itself in the first place will be the end game, and having protocols like Paraswap and now going to be named Velora, helping on abstracting fully this underlying layer that speaks only to developers, to engineers, and not necessarily to end users.
Very interesting. And yeah, as a more experienced DeFi user, it is a pain when you have this new chains every day and you have even and then it's multiple steps. It's not an Amazon experience at all to move that stablecoin to a new chain to want to get some ether or trade to any asset. So if you can expedite that, that would be great. So you said that's under Project Miró. This is a new venture, and what's the stage of this cross-chain swapping? Where is everything at with that?
Yeah, so there was an initiative that started in late 2024, last year. It's codenamed the Project Miró, where it takes Paraswap into a new category, because we were known as a DEX aggregator. And we think that's okay, but as I said in the beginning, intents are the future, especially in terms of adoption and chain abstraction as well, like removing the complexity on the like swap layer, but also on the chain layer. So that's an idea that emerged in Q4, and Project Miró was the translation of all these ideas on how to completely rebrand Paraswap and redefine the foundations of the protocol. And the idea is that you will be, as a user, able to swap token A for B, regardless of where is token A and where is token B. Obviously, we're going to start in few steps. So the very initial launch will be a swap and bridge, and that's a very first step that will at least solve the very problem that users have is, I want just my asset to be on the other chain so they can make it in one single transaction without having to worry on how it's going to be done. And also without having to worry about MEV attacks and sandwich attacks and like best execution, basically.
Yeah. Now, I was curious about the attacks or vectors of risk with decentralized trading. It's not something that can happen when you're on a major exchange, a centralized exchange, where I've seen stories of people, they had 1,000, they swapped, but then something happened with the contract code or something interfered, and all of a sudden they've lost 20% when they were only supposed to lose 0.1%. So can you talk about those potential risks with DEX trading and also how that is mitigated with the platform?
Well, anything that runs some code, who says code says bugs, so bugs can happen. We try to, of course, mitigate that through good coding practices and good architecture, and of course audits. But nothing can like guarantee that the code is gonna be correct 100%. No matter how many measures we can put. We also have in our latest smart contract for Swap the aggregator, we have done formal verification as well. So those are like best efforts we can make in order to minimize the chances of getting exploited. But it's not guaranteed. Like just like a disclaimer to end users, there's no code that's secure or safe 100%. But having said that, the systems based on intent or intent-centric trading protocols have what we call auctions. I mean, that's like any normal auction, which means like when I submit an intent or like sign an intent, what happens behind the scene, there is an auction. So it's a competition, it's a race between multiple, what we call agents, other called solvers, that try to bid on that auction and provide the best possible price. So for instance, let's say as a user, I used a buggy UI, or like I made a mistake and I set my slippage tolerance very, very high, like 20%, as you said. If I use an aggregator and if I use just a normal wallet without any protection, there are some front-running bots or even what you call generalized MEV searchers who are doing that just for profit. Like they're not attacking users per se, but they have some statistical models that will spot an opportunity and front run it right away. And they will eat your 20%. For them, it's their profits. But when you use intent, first of all, there's a competition. So even if you set a high slippage tolerance, the ones who bid, they are trying to outbid each other. And when they outbid each other, they will tighten the slippage until it tends to zero. It's never going to be zero, of course, because they will still maybe executing on the market. But also the way they execute, they use a private RPC endpoint. So instead of sending it directly to the public chain, like the public mempool that's visible by everyone, they use, it's like a private chain, not a chain, but it's like a private channel or a communication channel between them and the builders. They also, I mean, we can get into the details of that, but basically the transaction is not visible publicly. So those attackers don't get to see the transaction in the first place in order to attack it. So those are two layers of protection for the end users that make intent-based protocols much safer in that sense.
Wow, that's very interesting. I didn't know that you could do different channels to send the transaction to verify it on the chain. I thought it was just a big memory pool, and if people pay a higher transaction fee, then they can bump up, get their transaction done faster. But then there's AI and bots that can see everything that's loading, and in insecure platforms, not like Paraswap, it's possible to pay a higher fee and mess with the slippage, and then all of a sudden you've lost a lot more than you think. I hope that that's something that will be a thing of the past in decentralized finance as we continue to grow and probably bring more of this intent-based DeFi.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And one other topic I wanted to talk about was the Paraswap DAO and just the state of DAOs and decentralized autonomous organizations and community involvement in the growth of decentralized platforms. I know that there is a DAO. Can you talk about how that helps shape the platform, the value that a DAO brings to decentralized finance, and anything else that could provide value in that aspect?
Yeah, so our DAO evolved a lot since late 2021 when we launched the Paraswap token and the DAO and all of that. Since the last few months, we have built a professional system. So we're trying to make the DAO as professional as possible. So we have a delegate system, and delegates are public, either individuals or entities who are specialized in like governance. So they already have experience and have seen a lot during the last couple of years. And they have other stakeholders who are like basically Paraswap token holders or stakers who delegate their tokens to them. And they vote in a transparent way. Like each time there is a proposal, there will be some discussion, some debate, sometimes community calls. And the delegates have this, I would say, neutral slash professional eye on every proposal. So they will try to challenge it in a rational way, at least as much as they can. And you can see the recent proposals. There are a lot of debates, a lot of back and forths, and a lot of, I would say, challenges sometimes, and some controversial ones. And delegates, they always have to iterate on like, how should we approach that? What are the risk parameters? How can this help Paraswap grow and attract more users? And also you can see them as ambassadors of the brand because they are working at the end for the Paraswap protocol. They are paid by the Paraswap DAO. So I would say I like a lot the way the DAO has evolved and the value that has created to the protocol, and also the example is given to other DAOs. So if they have to start, they will not be making the mistakes we have made in the past.
Yeah, no, delegate model, I think that probably helps speed up the process a little bit with making decisions. I'm curious on what you think in general of DAOs and their efficiency and how it's progressing, because there's no perfect way to run a DAO, but I think it's still, it's very early stage compared to traditional organizations being around for hundreds of years. Do you think some of the efficiency has been worked out? Is it as efficient as people are hoping at this stage of how DAOs are maturing to run a protocol?
It's a very good question. I think DAOs will never be as efficient as a company or like a foundation because the speed of decision making is always slow and it's made by design. It's like I would say, democracies versus like a more dictatorship-based countries, where if you are in a in a country that doesn't need to have a democratic process, the heads of state can make decisions right away. Like they don't need to consult with anyone. This can be like a double-edged sword, where you can have dictatorships with all the bad things we know about, and they can be efficient. But yeah, you have no guarantee that the behavior will be in the favor of the people. And here, of course, this is not a country. This is not. This is still a for-profit organization. So maybe we can compare it to public companies rather than nation states. But still, a public company has to go through a lot of process and a lot of, I would say, compliance and all of that, unlike a private company. So I would say in terms of velocity and decision making, DAOs will often be slower. But the thing is, we are trying to find the best possible model because we're not public companies at the end. There's no CEO, there's no, I would say, still no central points of failures. That's at least what we're trying to do. So I think the delegation systems are very promising and can provide this sweet spot between delegating to the right persons who have very good context and they know exactly what they're doing, and not having a central company that can fail and can be also a honeypot or a central point of failure that if it fails, the whole thing is gonna fall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really hard to compare it to anything else. I believe it's getting more efficient over the years here. I would highly recommend people at least join some DAOs and try to contribute and see how the process works, because it can be very rewarding. And you know, if you become a delegate or even just participating, you know, it's not just volunteer work. You can still reap the rewards of contribution. So. Now, you mentioned about the Project Miró, which is awesome, and cross-chain, which I think is super important, and aggregating liquidity. That's happening right now. So what's the major roadmap timeline for the next few months in transitioning into more cross-chain, and is there anything else up the sleeve of Paraswap as it evolves?
Yeah, now the biggest thing coming is the transition into Velora, the new brand. Like Paraswap becomes Velora, and launching the cross-chain protocol that should happen maybe when this airs. This will be already announced, and opening up the developer tools so others can integrate it, like other protocols and dApps and wallets, and the launch also of the new token. So Paraswap token will also migrate into the Velora token. There is a one-to-one ratio, but also a whole revamp of the tokenomics. It's all detailed in the Project Miró. And what I like to do is launch Delta, which is like our intent, like API or products, to all possible chains we can. Right now, it's available only on Ethereum and Base. But still there is Polygon, Avalanche, and other chains that we don't support also right now in like the aggregator side. My goal is to at least my hope is we can launch in all possible chains and have all those chains be able to talk to each other. So users can swap from any chain to any other chain without having to worry, like as I said in the beginning, which chain they are. That's like the dream. But in the first step that we are looking for at the Paraswap team is to launch Delta, or like the intent-based trading, in all possible chains this year.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm liking the cross-chain strategy. I think it's super important because there's so much development going on in different blockchains in the Ethereum EVM ecosystem. And you know, there's still so many people that are trading on a centralized exchange, and they keep hearing about DeFi, and even though I think they think it's harder than it is. Could you give an example of, like, if you just had, say you were only trading on Coinbase and you have yet to dip your feet into a DeFi platform, and you just have like Ether to stable coins, you could potentially go to Paraswap and like do this in minutes or seconds of like being able to not really have to learn anything.
Yeah, and even the wallet infrastructure is getting much better. There are now even some wallets where all you need to do is a login password. You don't even need to remember any seed phrase. And even yes, recently I was I was switching more and more to using Rabi wallet instead of MetaMask, and
Yeah.
it's amazing the onboarding experience where you don't really need to like go into all this complexity of just setting up a wallet. You just click, 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 click. Your wallet is ready to go. So I think DeFi is much simpler than it used to be, and if you use Paraswap these days, you don't even need to have gas in your wallet, unlike before, where we used to ask a lot from users. Actually, when I created Paraswap, the very early version was a retail app that didn't have really aggregation. It was just taking prices from all other dexes and providing the best possible exchange. And the target users who are like retail, like everyone user was using Binance and Coinbase. And turned out that it was a very bad idea. It didn't work at all because, well, I noticed later that I was asking a lot. You have to download the wallet, install it, secure it, see the phrase, blah, 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 gas, many complexities. But now you don't need gas at all. You can just create a wallet, Rabi, for instance,
Yeah.
and just use Paraswap. You want to buy ETH with your USDC, you just push a button, sign a message, and you're good to go. That's, I would say, the simplicity we got to. And I think next is that you don't even need to have a wallet. Maybe you can just log in with your password or log in, for instance, with your Coinbase account. They have this possibility with their SDK where you can directly swap from your Coinbase accounts and buy whatever token is available on chain.
Wow, very cool. And what's the best way to follow along with the updates on the roadmap that you said, and for people to get started and make some trades for those who haven't tried it yet?
I think everyone is welcome to visit paraswap.xyz and follow us on Twitter at Paraswap. And soon Paraswap is rebranding to Velora, so it's going to be at Velora app, I think. But yeah, Paraswap will be the best entry point right now.
Sounds great, Mounir. I appreciate your insights into DeFi, where it's heading, the advancements we're making to make it the Amazon experience, and bring more people into the decentralized world so they don't have to rely on third parties to trade their digital assets for them. That's the nature of crypto. So wishing you and the team all the best on Paraswap or Velora. Now I'll be following along for those updates. I'll leave a link to the socials and the trading platform as well in the show notes below. All the best with everything, and let's follow up in the near future.
Thank you, Ashton.